Hey guys.
Hey everybody, we're back with another one today. We're giving you our last overview of all the research we've been doing on vehicles to live in. And today we'll be talking about the trucks. We were considering trucks. In our case, we were thinking about putting possibly a small camper on the back of it, which would give us a lot of extra room to stand up and eat and do things of that nature. So when we overview our trucks, just keep that in mind. Our criteria will be heavily weighted on which ones would be good for a small, lightweight camper.
Yeah, there's lots to look at when it comes to trucks. So if you're a single person, obviously you could just do the cover on the back of the truck, so you can get a smaller truck for it. So we were looking more in kind of the mid-size range for vehicles. So more of our stuff will be based on for the camper criteria. So the big thing when you're looking to put a camper on a vehicle or on a truck is the payload. So you obviously need to know how much your truck can carry and how much it can carry safely. You don't want to go over it and then ruin your truck, especially if you're going to be in it for 10, 20 years. You want to make sure you're definitely underweight. So a lot of things go into the payload. So everything from the cab size, the bed size, what model you have, all the trim levels, everything changes the payload amount. So
yeah, and I will warn you, if you're looking at something like this, when it comes to payload, it can be very confusing. Whether it's new to you or even if you kind of have an understanding of it, it's a little overwhelming from the research side. If you start putting things in Google, like a certain truck, an F-150, blah blah blah, payload specs, and you see that range of numbers, don't just take it for what it is, because a lot of times that's not correct because of what we were just talking about. It varies depending on the year and the cab size and the engine type and whether or not it's four-wheel drive or not, and all of those criteria. So be cautious with that. Get a couple different sources before you rely on that number, especially because it is so important.
yeah, we didn't really realize it at first, but so if you want the most payload out of a vehicle, you get a regular cab truck that's two-wheel drive, and that will give you the highest payload you can get out of the vehicle. If you want to get like a double cab or a crew cab, that will raise or lower your payload. And then if you want to get four-wheel drive actually lowers your payload too, because the more weight that you add to your truck, the less of the payload you're going to have. And then there are websites that say that you might be able to increase your payload, but that's not true. You can never actually increase the payload of the truck. You can just add support to it, like leaf springs and airbags and like that, so the truck better holds the weight, but you can never increase the amount that your truck can hold. So whatever is on the sticker on the inside of your door or in the glove box, that's how much your truck can hold. You can't make the frame hold more weight. So
it will simply improve the performance of the vehicle. Now, there are aftermarket things that you can add to the vehicle to help improve that performance, such as suspension upgrades. And there are things like airbags that you can add to the vehicle. And then we also did a little research and found that there is a company that makes, that's Timbrens. And these are suspension supports as well. So
yeah, they're just a chunk of rubber, so there's really nothing that can go wrong with it. So they're kind of nice. The airbags look nice, but if you're going to have a camper in it and you're going to have the weight in it all the time, you better just go with the Timbrens, because there's really no maintenance to it. Airbags can bust, and if they bust, you have to replace it. You can't be driving around with one airbag in it, and they seem to be more expensive too.
Yeah, and in our case, if we put a camper on the back, we wouldn't be removing it constantly, so it would just always have the weight. So that seems to make more sense from our perspective and our research.
And then also, I think almost every version of trucks comes with like an off-road package that you can get. So Chevy has the Z71, and Ford has the FX, and I think Nissan has an FX too, and the Toyotas have the TDR one. So they all have kind of upgraded suspension to them. So they just have like bigger shocks and kind of like a different rear differential on it, and some have skid plates on it. So it's kind of good to look into those too if you're going to be spending the money. Some of them don't actually mention that when you're looking them up on online or anything. So make sure you actually click on each vehicle to see if it has like the Z71 package, because we looked at a lot and they did not mention it. So you can pretty much get them for the same price as your regular vehicle. So
yeah, so some of the other considerations when you're looking at trucks, would be, obviously you're going to be looking at size of bed. And typically this is going to be probably a 6.5 or an 8-foot bed. And that does affect the payload as well. And then you can also be looking at the cab size. So the...
yeah, there's a whole bunch of ones. So you get the regular cab, it's just 2 doors. You get the double cab, or some call it extended cab, and Ford calls it, I think, just the crew. And then they call the bigger door, or the 2 big doors in the back, the super crew. Or then they got
Ford is super cab and super crew.
Yeah.
And Dodge is quad end crew, and Chevy is double end crew. So even though they're the same things, the terminology is just different.
Yeah.
But yeah, the crew, or the cab will change the price and payload as well. So for us, it didn't really make sense to think about the biggest one. We don't need the crew cab.
Yeah, the only reason we were looking for one with a back seat is for the dogs. So we needed to have a spot for the dogs to be sitting at. So otherwise we could just get the regular cab and up the payload, but it's better to have a little back seat for them. But then the crew cab is really big. It'd be nice to have that big bed in the back, but then you lose bed space. So if you have a crew cab, then it lowers your bed size down to about 5.5 instead of 6.5. So otherwise you get a really, really long truck if you have a 6-foot bed on there with the crew cab. So we don't need anything crazy long.
And again, the crew cab also changed the payload. So we didn't really want to reduce our payload. So that was a nice middle ground for us. Now, if you are kind of, if you're doing this just on your own and you don't need the extra space, you could go with a regular cab and get the max payload out of the vehicle. So something to keep in mind.
Yeah, so onto the trucks. We pretty much ruled a lot of them out right away just based on those criteria right there, with needing to have a decent-sized truck that can carry some payload and some back seats and things like that. So we pretty much ruled out the Tacoma right away, and the Nissan Frontier and the Chevy Colorado, just because their payloads are pretty low. Can't really fit a camper on it unless you want to be over payload a lot, which I don't really want to do that. And then we ruled out the 3/4 tons right away too, just because they're too big and too expensive and really bad gas mileage. So we're pretty much just looking at the 1/2 tons, which left us with just a few.
Okay, so for the trucks we had the Toyota Tundra, the Nissan Titan, the Chevy Silverado 1500, we have the Ford F-150, and we have the Dodge Ram 1500 as our contenders. We're going to dwindle this down to only a few options because the Toyota Tundra has fairly bad gas mileage, so we kind of ruled that one out. The Nissan Titan also has poor gas mileage and not the best payload, and the Dodge Ram 1500 also did not have the best gas mileage out of all of them, and had a rather low payload as well. To give you an example, the Nissan Titan for the 2015-ish year, used model, obviously, it would be like a 1217 for miles per gallon, and the Dodge Ram was, let's see, it was around a 1420 for their V8 model and like a 1623 for their V6 for that 2015 used edition. So yeah, that kind of ruled it out for us because, again, miles per gallon and payload, if we could max those, that's what we want to do. So that literally left us with the Chevy Silverado and the Ford F-150 as really the only option. So while it looked like a lot at first, we ended up with like pretty much 2 contenders for our purposes. So now just a quick comparison of those 2 vehicles. If you also get down to this, they're quite similar, I will say. So, I mean...
Yeah, so Chevy, you got all the trims. You got the LS, which is just your base model, LT, LTZ, and then you get the Z71 package, which is the suspension and the off-road package. So we were just looking at used ones because we're not going to get a brand new one, of course, but... So a new one's going to be put you in about 60, 70,000. Yeah. But their payload's around 2,000. So we're looking at probably like a 2013, 14 maybe.
V6 is about 1722 and the V8's about 1623 for around that year. And then the price is going to be somewhere between 20 and 24,000 depending on mileage, of course. But yeah. So.
Yeah, they just they remodeled the truck in 2014, so that kind of jumped from 13 to 14, made it go up a little bit, but mostly it was all based on mileage. Everything with the trucks was the year really didn't matter on the price. It was more the mileage. So if you want low mileage, you're going to be paying a little bit more.
And then Chevy also offers what they call the Ecotech Active Fuel Management, or AFM. And that's basically a cylinder deactivation feature, which basically it means if you're in a V6, you can get like V4 functionality, or if you're in a V8, you drop down to like a V6 functionality. You're activating a cylinder, which should theoretically improve your gas mileage, which is a nice feature, and it automatically does it. So I think that's a good overview of the Chevys. For the Ford F-150, some of the features that are specific to Ford, how about you?
Yeah, they got all the trims again. They got the XL, XLT, and then they got their off-road package, which is the FX4. Then they just started doing their aluminum bodies now. That started in 2015. So that just makes the truck lighter. Still not sure how it's going to work out in the long run since they haven't been around for too long. So it's a plus for right now just because it's lighter. Not sure about how the whole rust thing will work out with aluminum since it's not completely aluminum. It's just it's just an ore, so it's still...
It's kind of a hot debate online. For fun, if you're interested in it, just look it up and you'll find lots of articles and videos of people on either side of whether or not it's good or bad. So there's that.
So Ford's big thing is their turbo. So they got the V6, and they're like, oh, it's still got the same amount of power, but it's got a turbo. So, which if you want to drive fast, I guess it's better for you because it'll get up and go faster, but we'd rather have more power and just be able to haul something or tow something. That's what the truck is for. So they have the turbo if you need to go fast, but I'm not sure how that's going to run or work in the long run either, just because you're going to be hitting the gas a lot, and it's probably going to wear your engine out a little faster. And
another thing that seemed to stand out with Ford for us was this whole idea of options. Ford has so many different things that you can add on and all these different options. They all have the different options, but Ford seems to really be the king of options.
Yeah, their insides are super fancy, and it's just a lot of it is just kind of not needed.
Yeah, in our case, it wasn't necessarily a plus, because a lot of times that would run the price up when we were looking at dealerships and checking out the vehicles. They would, try to sell it to us and say, well, this price is higher because, you get all these features. And we'd be like, well, we don't want those features. So, it was interesting looking around and price comparing those. That's something we definitely noticed. And so you're probably looking at, for a similar vehicle for the Ford F-150, you'll probably get over that, like around that $26,000 mark for that older, like 2015, 2014 year with, lower to mid mileage. So it might run you a little, just slightly pricier than the Chevy, but for the most part, they're quite similar. And that's pretty much what we found, which leaves us with the conclusion of our pick. Kind of hard to say. Either one would probably work. I think if we were to go this way, we would be leaning towards the Chevy Silverado. We like the active fuel management feature. We like the fact that we could get a V8 engine for higher performance.
Yeah.
While at the same time keeping about the same gas mileage as the comparable Ford F-150.
Yeah, we're not sure about the whole aluminum body and holding up to the weight of a camper for 10, 15 years.
And then that doesn't work out.
And then if we're going to be putting weight on it, I don't need a turbo because I feel like the turbo will blow out pretty quick.
So again, we don't want to pay for features we don't need in that case. And we kind of like the Chevy's option, if needed, of that Z7-1 with potential suspension upgrades, because in our case, that's what matters. Yeah. So our pick would probably be the Chevy Silverado 1500, and probably looking at some years between, 2012 to 2015-ish or so, depending on price. So that does it for the trucks. I hope that was helpful. One little side note for research help as well. Let me see. We've got these, I've got a few tips. We went around and looked at a lot of CarMaxes. We've mentioned those a couple of times. It was a great place for us to just explore vehicles and jump into them. And while we were investigating research as well, we got these handy dandy little printouts from them. And as you can see, it discusses all the specs of the vehicles. So you can get things like the Payload for that specific model and that specific cab and everything for that year. That is a tremendous help because, like I said, trust me, when you get online and you're looking and comparing, it's going to be very confusing, and often their numbers are not correct. Now, the dealerships can also print you something off as well that talks about the payload, but we noticed they might be a little more stingy about giving you these fact sheets for some reason. So, if you can, sneak into a CarMax, ask them, and just don't be too greedy and ask for like tons of years, but if you ask for just a year or two to compare them, they'll probably be kind and print you off one of these fact sheets. So that's just a little helpful tip, something we discovered.
And all you need is the last page, because there's it's like a 30-page booklet if you print it all.
Yeah, it has all the specs.
The last page is the only
trim details.
one with the payload on it, so that's the only one we needed.
Right. Yep.
Everything else is just kind of random stuff that's about the vehicle. So if you want to know everything, it's good for you, but...
Yeah, so definitely a useful tool there. Otherwise, we'll try to load up some other links and helpful sites in the description as we get them together to help you with things like looking at miles per gallon, looking at payload, and anything else like that. But otherwise, that's our truck overview, and we'll probably put something together for you guys for a kind of the fun other vehicles that we've discovered as we've been researching everything from all the other things. You know, there's ambulances, armored trucks, there's a lot of interesting ones. Most of them pretty much were out of our price range, but it's still kind of fun to browse them. Things like earth roamers and whatever else is out there. So we'll put that together so we can share that with you as well in another video. But what's really coming up soon is we're going to be revealing our ultimate pick between the vans, the SUVs, and the trucks. We've told you which one we'd pick out of each of them. Next time, we'll tell you which one we are picking all together. So stay tuned for that, coming soon. And other than that, thanks. I hope this was helpful, and we'll see you guys next time.
Bye, guys.
Bye.